Hello, today we're going to be talking about the art of tracking and predicting the future success of the business enterprise, how to use the tools to meet the growing demand of product and services and keep track of cost, volume, and price while providing insights for future planning. In other words, how do you predict the future through analytics, tracking, forecasting, and reporting? So today's subject will be forecasting, tracking, and reporting. And there's four sub processes included in this. Hi, I'm Voss Graham. I am a entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur for 36 years, and looking forward to sharing this information that I have gained from not only personal experience, but observing and working with my clients from Fortune 500 companies all the way down to fast-growing entrepreneurial regional companies, and understanding what works, what doesn't work. And that's what I'm sharing. That's part of my mission right now, is to give back or to leave something behind for future entrepreneurs. So let's just dive right in. The first thing out of the chute is lead generation and tracking and review. Now, lead generation is a hot topic. It's talked about all the time. There's 106 different ways to track leads and all the different forms of lead generation, from the internet with opt-in forms to utilizing the social media to attract people based on building trust and rapport with people by giving them excellent content and information that they can take and use immediately. Or I maybe just word of mouth, trade shows, etc. There's any number of ways that you can get lead generation. However, the accurate tracking and review of the lead generation, or the leads that are generated for your organization, becomes a critical factor. Most organizations just use lagging indicators. Now, lagging is just what it says, lagging. It's after the fact. There's no ability to change the future if something is lagging behind. So it's old information. I've seen this as old as a month, 2, 3 months, and sometimes 6 months, as to what happened to those leads. And in most cases, leads that are gathered are not worked because the salespeople feel like they're not qualified leads. So here's what progressive companies are doing. Not only are they tracking the lagging indicators, but they are looking for leading indicators. What else is in play that needs to happen in order for the lead to turn into a qualified lead? I know I'm personally using applications now that people will fill out before we engage, because I don't want to be working with people that don't match my ideal client. I don't want to be working with folks that are penny pinchers and laggards in their own learning and have no desire to improve their company. They just want status quo. And as I've often said, comfort zones are the death knell for all growth. I mean, all growth. It's a killer. So we have to have some qualified leads. Now, some of the progressive companies are actually assigning this to either a group of inside salespeople or even marketing people who are, if the enterprise is big enough and they have a marketing staff, the marketing people are actually accountable for generating qualified leads and not just leads. Most leads are just cold. They wanted some kind of free something, and they don't really have any interest in what you sell, offer, or promote. So it's in that environment, it's not healthy. That's a lot of wasted effort and time consuming. If salespeople are forced to chase those cold leads, all they do is get frustrated and hear a lot of no's or get waste a lot of time, and that's That's probably the most important issue in my book relative to sales teams, is they do not need to be wasting time chasing cold leads. They need to be going after the warm leads, the hot leads, the leads that have opened up and said, hey, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Please contact me, give me more information. Here's my contact information. Here's my cell phone number. Here's my email. And they sincerely mean it. They want to know more. Those are the best type of leads. And you can only do that if you have certain leading indicators that are tracking this kind of data to make sure that you have that data for your sales teams and marketing teams and review. Now, a second area for tracking and forecasting is sales pipeline development and reporting. Now, I know that years ago, when I was working with major account groups, the sales pipeline was a critical element in being able to project out the actual sales growth for an organization. And some companies had gotten really good at it, and they could forecast in the 90% range, as high, I've seen as high as 97% accuracy relative to the percentage of business. How did they do that? Well, it's very simple. They understood their sales processes, which I talked about back in, in the third video, in the third broadcast, I talked about sales processes. Well, what they did is they studied their sales processes and said, okay, look, it appears that if we get to this stage, our percentage of success goes up. So what they had the salespeople do was to attach early on a numeric value to the sales process that was being engaged. So in other words, they had to anticipate what would be purchased. That also helped clear out the tire, what I call the tire kickers from the serious folks, and that they knew exactly what they wanted and how big it was going to be, the volume, etc., and were able to track that data through the sales process. And as it got closer and closer to the end of the process, the percentages of success went higher, leading to very accurate forecasting, including the month of the year or the quarter that it was going to be closed, and there would be an agreement to the contracts, and it was all dependent on the percentages of completion of the sales process. And the only way you can do that accurately is to have a sales pipeline that you can track, particularly your major accounts. Those of you who are selling major accounts, you need to have a sales pipeline. You need to know where each customer or each target, each client is in that sales process, so that you can accurately forecast when that business is going to come in the door. Now, when we were doing major account selling, I know that one of my clients had transitioned from selling traditional, fasteners and C-class products. They were basically a level 3 supplier in different industries, which level 3 or class C, it was all about fasteners, low ticket items. But when they shifted to a major account approach with inventory management and saving their customers dollars, it was based upon being able to project when that work was going to come in. The truth of the matter is, when they got a new account, being a smaller organization, it was all hands on deck to make the transition, because they knew that was the most important part, was to get the customers on board quickly and smoothly without any hiccups or problems. To do that, they had to swarm all over it. And we realized that we could only take on X amount of new customers or X amount of volume at any one particular time or month of the year, because it would overload the system and they didn't have enough people for too many accounts coming on at the same time. So sales pipelines are critical. You've got to be able to break that process down and then track them through the process, or through the pipeline, so that at the end, revenue is flowing out the end of the pipeline into your bank, and then the customer is getting the supplies. Now, this is also very, very helpful if you're in manufacturing or distribution. You can also time the purchasing of parts, raw materials, etc. for building. If you're a manufacturing company, you got to build something, so it helps you forecast in the operations group when they would be needing to start that particular project. In the area of distribution houses, well, you don't want to overload your inventory until you absolutely need it, so that there's a high turnover of inventory, and you don't get caught with obsolete, stale, dead inventory, which is nothing more than a cost item, big time cost item. Anyway, all right, so that's the sales pipeline. The third area is cost of goods evaluation. This is also related to making sure that you're making a profit on all products and services should be included in that cost of goods evaluation, or just cost evaluation. These are things that need to be done to make sure that there is profit, and you can attach it to either product lines, or you can attach it to the customer base, so that you know exactly who is getting or who is delivering the highest profitability to your organization. And that's why you track this, so that you can be more efficient. Let me just say this: if you are one of the companies that here's the deal. If you're the low-cost provider, somebody's going to undercut you. I mean, that's just the experience that I have seen multiple times. And the only way a low-cost provider can stay ahead of the game is by constantly checking the cost of their goods and their efficiency within their operations and or manufacturing, so that they continuously lower their costs, so that they can handle the lower pricing and still maintain adequate margins. That's how the most successful commodity-based type companies operate, is they're constantly working that lower line, or that cost line, so that they can keep it under control and continue to make the same margins, even as the price of your products or services go down, because they're commoditized. And then finally, pricing structure. Now, again, pricing structure is one of these areas that's difficult to determine. There are some people who just use a cost plus. I'm not a big fan of cost plus, yet it is a common way of pricing things. It's really more of what the market can bear. And even there, most of the time, we are not paying attention to the value added aspect of what we're offering, particularly if you're a professional firm and you're basically giving away your services on a per hour basis, where you're not paying attention to the fact that you're doing a lot of good for that organization. You're either saving them time, money, or helping them make more money by sharing valuable information with them and insights into what is making their organization run better. I know this is the way we approach business, and have been for several years now. It's a much better approach, and also this was validated for me, because I was observing some people that were making, what I was always challenged by was not asking too much. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the entrepreneur, particularly entrepreneur whose fairness uh, gauge goes off the chart like mine. So I always want to be fair with my clients, but yet I also have to support the organic growth of the organization. So we had to look at it differently. Then I started learning that some of the organizations that I was working with, and I was actually hiring consultants or going to uh, go into programs with some of the gurus of a specialty and learning from them. And I realized that they were not afraid to charge significant dollars for their services. And yet, I was kind of at first taken back, but I realized that the really good ones, they also offered so much extra value and benefit that I always got a return on my investment, even at those prices. And, excuse me, seem to have a frog in my throat. Anyway, the book by Perry Marshall, The 80-20 Rule for Sales and Marketing, opened my eyes into what is possible. Once I read that, I realized that there's a lot of folks that would pay more for certain types of services and can afford it and will not be offended and actually in some cases the affluent would rather pay more than to pay a little bit because they just feel like then it's a higher quality service or product. So your pricing structure needs to fit the market that you're going after. This is why back in stage 2, we looked at customer intelligence, knowing your customer cold. What do they look like? How do they react? What's their psychographics as well as their demographics? Too often we just spend time on the demographics and not paying attention to the psychographics, which is really the psychographics is what determines whether we have a really good client or not. The demographics is more of a haven for commodity sales. It's a psychographics that separate the players from poor to average to great, and you need to pay more attention to those factors, and then base your pricing depending upon who you sell to. And if you see, the beauty of this is if you're selling in the sense that you're using modern selling techniques and you're learning more about the customer as you move along and what they're really looking for, what they really want, what their desires are, what their gaps are, and you make the right solution, then your offer can be adjusted based on who the customer is. As interesting research, now this is more of a sales topic than a pricing structure process, but just track your pricing because in most cases, including me, we've underpriced our services significantly in some cases, and it's only because we were thinking small, possibly. Particularly those of you who are small business owners and leaders, we have a tendency to think small and tight, and instead of thinking about what's the value that we're adding to the client, what benefits are they getting, what returns on investment are they getting, then we need to explore the pricing. Anyway, so that's it. That's the 4 biggies of forecasting, tracking, and reporting. I mean, we could get into a lot more detail like CRMs and HubSpot that tracks all the social media interaction with your websites, and CRMs where you can keep extensive customer records and along with the pipelines of sales progress and process. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today. Look forward to hearing from you. Be sure to leave a comment below, and please comment because I need to know what you like, what you don't like, if I'm talking too long, or if I need to shorten it up or take out sections and just go in depth and detail on how to implement certain things that I've talked about in these in the first 11 parts of the 14-part series. We've got 3 more to go, and I'm going to knock those out this week for you. So you'll be watching for them the rest of the week on our interactive consulting group page on Facebook as well as YouTube. So, and then I'll probably put some up on some of my one of my blogs soon too. So thank you very much for your time. And again, I'm not selling you anything today, but if you do want to get in touch with me, just reach out to vossgraham.com and contact me. Anyway, take care. Excuse me for my throat thing here. At the end of a long day, and I'm relaxing now. So.